Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Raging Introvert. Unfortunately, today there's been another mass shooting in the U.S. at a school, and that means there's going to be a bunch of knee-jerk reactions and poor analysis done. And for some reason, I don't know, I just have a soft spot in my heart for the whole gun control argument. So maybe it's a bit of an easy discussion, but I was scrolling through and I saw this one. Opinion: Why Americans Don't Do Anything About Mass Shootings. And what jumped out, well, many things jumped out, but interestingly, if you look at the bottom of the screen there, the link that it shows is actually, it says 2017 1106, which leads me to believe that they're so desperate to push information out and opinions out right after these events that they have, I guess, previously written articles from 6 months ago queued up and ready to go so they can just rehash them and send them out right away. And actually, if we go to the article here, Why Americans Don't Do Anything About Mass Shootings, we can see here, it even says updated Thursday, February 15th, 2018. I don't know, was there another shooting maybe? It was updated after that one? It seems a little strange, but that's what it seems to indicate to me. Quick, there's been a shooting. Let's just check out the pre-made articles we already have in for opinion pieces on a social, it says here, social commentary. I suppose in some ways that's reasonable. The general argument for or against gun control hasn't changed that much. Something else I think it's always important to do is to look at the author here, Mel Robbins. So I've never heard of that author, so I did a quick Google search, and let's see what we've got. I found this one. Let's see, back in 2014, the real gun problem is mental health, not the NRA. Okay, so that was 4 years ago. Next time there's a mass shooting, don't jump to blame the National Rifle Association and lax gun laws. Look first at the shooter and mental health services. Okay, strengthening gun control won't stop the next mass shooter, but changing our attitudes and treatment options we offer, holding mentally unstable, mentally people for treatment just might. Okay, that's more in line with my view of the problem, so that's an interesting perspective to come from, and not what I was expecting from Why We Don't Do Anything About Mass Shootings, a headline like that. I also found this from a pro-gun forum. It's got a link as from 2012, as you can see. In the wake of Aurora, let's talk mental illness reform, not gun control. When I clicked on the link, however, it came to her page, but it couldn't find the page you were looking for. Now, we're talking about an article 6 years ago, so it's quite possible the link's broken. It could also be maybe something has changed in her opinion, and she didn't want that kind of opinion on her website anymore. Let's see if we can find some more evidence one way or the other. Mel Robbins, it's 2016 now. Now it's only 2 years ago. Why Obama Cried Over Gun Control. Now, just from the headline in her previous articles, she could take a more cynical approach and say he was just trying to gin up sympathy for his pro-gun control agenda, and or she could say he was genuinely sympathetic and emotionally moved, and legitimately so. And that would be the correct answer if you read the article. The president cried because he allowed himself to feel something no one wants to feel, the tremendous pain of losing someone you love. I don't know if he can really allow himself. I would say no one can fully grasp that feeling unless they've experienced it. But again, I think it's at least legitimate to be moved. Today, among other things, he introduced a new requirement mandating that individuals, quote, in the business of selling firearms, end quote, register as licensed gun dealers, effectively narrowing the so-called gun show loophole, which exempts most small sellers from keeping formal records, which I assume she's going to be against from her previous articles saying that gun control and these stupid, meaningless little initiatives aren't going to make a difference. She says, is it enough? No. Will it stop the next shooter? Perhaps. Well, the answer is no. This garbage will not do anything. What we do know is doing nothing is no longer acceptable, and we have to start somewhere. This doing nothing is no longer acceptable, and we have to start somewhere. That's the road to tyranny, ladies and gentlemen. That's the road to. We don't care about if we actually solve the problems. We just want to be. We just want to look like we're doing something, and more importantly, they have a goal, an end state in mind. It may not be necessarily what they present it as. You can say we're lost, so we need to start moving and find our way home. Do we know which way we're going? No, but standing here and waiting isn't going to solve the problem. Doing nothing is no longer acceptable, so we have to start somewhere, and we're going to start moving that way. Realistically, you could end up getting more lost than you were before, go in the absolute wrong direction. But by golly, at least we're doing something. So it looks like between 2014 and 2016, something happened in her opinion of things that it's not. They're not talking about a lot of mental health in here anymore. They're talking about gun control. And of course, they had to throw in the old canard. The Second Amendment specifically authorizes a well-regulated militia, not an unregulated one. Actually, the Second Amendment doesn't authorize a well-regulated militia. It just says a well-regulated militia is essential for the security of a free state, and therefore, the right of the people to keep and bear arms will not be infringed. It's a little different the way she presents it here. But, okay, I've got some background on her. So we'll go back to the original article. She talks about October 2017. Worst mass shooting took place at the concert in Las Vegas. 58 people were killed, more than 500 people injured. Bill O'Reilly boiled the massacre down to 6 words. Quote, "This is the price of freedom," end quote. That's interesting. Unfortunately, he's correct. When there are free people, some people will abuse that freedom and do terrible things. However, and he's just a commentator. He's not a politician who has to try to be as careful with his words. That would be kind of like watching a video of someone slaughter a cow. And maybe a kosher slaughtering. They slit the throat, blood comes out everywhere, and they start butchering the cow afterwards. You could say, this is the price of kosher meat. That's true. That's not very sympathetic. And it doesn't really cast it in a very positive light. So, the statement is true, the statement is dumb, and I can see where people would hammer him for it. I hate to say it, but he's right. He is right. It's also, again, a dumb thing to say. She mentioned some other shootings. You won't be surprised with another one next month. Maybe it'll be your church, your mall, your concert, or your movie theater. That's the price of freedom. That's also, looking at this list of examples, the price of gun-free zones, where only the people that are breaking the law will be bringing firearms anyway. Because most of these places don't allow you to bring weapons. So the law-abiding citizens are there helpless and unarmed, and the people who abuse the freedom and liberties of our nation are free to do as they wish. In America, we are free to stockpile weapons. I've seen this a lot recently, where people talk about stockpiling weapons as being an issue. You've only got 2 arms. I mean, it's whether I have 3 guns or 50 guns at home. If I want to go on a killing spree, it doesn't make a difference. I can't carry my whole arsenal with me. It's not going to help me. It's not Doom, where I'm going to run around switching gun after gun after gun. So I don't understand why this is becoming more of a gun control talking point. But there it is. It's coming up again. We're free to order ammo online. I mean, if you can just walk over to the store and buy it, and it's not regulated. Okay, I don't want to open up that can of worms, but I mean, I don't understand why ordering ammo online is such a problem. We're free to outfit our guns with bump stocks, like the Vegas shooter did. You know, This nation was founded in 1776. We've been awash with guns for a long time. We've had, in that whole history of this nation, one dude committed a crime with a bump stock that made the news, and suddenly this is like the major issue. This has to be addressed. We have to ban bump stocks. Now, unlike a lot of other gun control measures, I can at least see where the government, and a lot of Second Amendment people are going to disagree with me, but you can at least make the argument that bump stocks are not part of a citizen's right to own weapons as part of a well-regulated militia. There doesn't have to be a member of it, but the intention is you're supposed to arm it. Citizens are supposed to be armed so they can participate in the militia and defend the nation against enemies, foreign and domestic. And the Supreme Court has, in some of its recent rulings, talked about how sawed-off shotguns, for example, are not a military-type weapon. They don't have a military function, which is why it's not protected by the Second Amendment. Bump stocks, honestly, don't fit under a military application. It's a cheap method of altering a weapon to make it have a pseudo-automatic fire. So, realistically, I would say that the government has the right to ban the weapons, but if the government does ban the weapons, is it going to change anything? If the Vegas shooter didn't have a bump stock, and instead of killing 58 people, if he killed 48 people, would the people of America be like, "Whew, well, that's okay then. It wasn't a big issue"? No. So the problem's at the bump stock. There's other problems to address. This is the price we pay for freedom, all right. The freedom to not give a damn. Tweeting prayers for the victims does not equal giving a damn. Feeling bad for a day or two does not equal giving a damn. Changing your Facebook profile photo to support the victims does not equal giving a damn. It's interesting. She talks about all this because ultimately, that's all she does. I mean, it's not quotes and Facebook pictures. She writes articles, which are like extended tweets and Facebook updates. But my quick Google search in this person, I didn't see her creating a foundation, raising money, none of that crap. What I did find was this tweet, of course, tweets he sent out. If all you can afford to send is thoughts and prayers, that's what she's going to send to her representative, a check that says thoughts and prayers. So you're as much a slacktivist as the people you're condemning here. Giving a damn requires us to commit to solving the problem. And the fact is, we have a serious problem in America with gun violence. Okay, we do, I will admit. There is a problem to solve, and America does have a fairly high rate of gun violence compared to the rest of the modernized Western world. So, what can we do to address that? Yeah, I understand statistics. A mass shooting is defined as an event where at least 4 people are shot. Notice all these other things are linked with links you can go to get more information. Notice how there's no citation for this. That's because that's not some universal definition. It's just one that she pulled out of her ass. So, right there, your spidey senses should be going off. When something definitive like that is stated and there's no link to justify it, you should be wondering, why is that the case? Because if you want to make it look like you have an agenda and you want to make it look like there's more mass shootings, you're going to make it a lower number, like 4 people. And it could include the gunman. The gunman and 3 people shot 3 people, and then the police shot the gunman. That's a mass shooting. Is it? If it's a drive-by shooting done by some gang-on-gang violence, is that a mass shooting? I mean, yeah. So that's the problem. We have one every day in America. Fine. If you adopt the broad definition used by the Gun Violence Archive. It's at least nice. She doesn't say why the Gun Violence Archive would have a broad definition is because they have a vested interest in making it look like these are very common events because they want gun control. In fact, Vegas wasn't the only mass shooting, blah, blah, blah. When we care, we solve problems. That's not necessarily true. People care about healthcare and the issues there, and we haven't solved anything. We've passed bills that haven't solved it, like Obamacare. The military cares. That's why the Air Force court-martialed the Texas shooter for assaulting his wife and child. I mean, that's just enforcing the rules and regulations. That's what the military does. We give no damns about gun violence, which is why a, quote, very deranged individual was able to buy an AR-556 rifle. The Texas governor said the gunman applied for a license to carry a gun, but was denied by the state. So he asked the key question, how was he able to get a gun? By all the facts we seem to know, he was not supposed to have access to a gun, so how did this happen? That's a good question. She doesn't answer it, though. She just, Congress doesn't care either, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's go back to this example here. In fact, we can look up the Sutherland Springs church shooting. Mass shooting at a church. Gunman goes in, killed 26, injured 20 others. Shot twice by a male civilian as he exited the church. So a law-breaking gunman at a church, a no-gun zone, was actually stopped by someone who was outside the church and shot at him. He fled, crashed, dead, was prohibited by law from purchasing or possessing firearms or ammunition. Wait, it was illegal for him to purchase or possess one. So that's interesting. I wonder how he got one. Due to a domestic violence conviction. Yeah, that's what they talked about. The military did the right thing and convicted him, but they failed to record the conviction in the NICS system, the background checks that they keep talking about. So actually, background checks were in place, but the government screwed things up, and he was allowed to purchase a gun anyway, even though he wasn't allowed to, and he should have been stopped by the background check system that everyone says is a solution to all of our problems. So that's a strange example that she would throw out there for solving our problems. It's also strange, and I hate to get pedantic on these things, but to talk about someone buying an AR-556 rifle. That weapon doesn't exist. I know what she means. And the gun control people will say, well, it doesn't matter. Who cares about the definitions and the terms? Who has to be specific? This is CNN. You know, I keep being told that we need to respect the mainstream media because they do layers and layers of fact checking and get things right. And we're talking here about an incredibly important issue, and they want to start banning guns and controlling things. So why don't they put in 15 minutes of work to actually get their terms right? It's probably an AR-15, and it fires a 5.56 round. It's not an AR-556. But anyway, let's get back on. Congress doesn't care either. It's up to us to stop this public health crisis, and unfortunately, we haven't reached the tipping point like we have with cancer and opioids. Well, the difference is in the fight against cancer, no one is trying to punish healthy citizens. In the fight against opioids and opioid addiction, no one is trying to punish innocent, law-abiding citizens. In the case of gun violence, people are trying to restrict the rights and punish law-abiding citizens for the wrongdoings of a small minority. Everyone knows someone who's been diagnosed with cancer. That's why we give a damn about solving the problem of cancer. Virtually everyone knows someone who has died of an opioid overdose. No, I don't think that's true. I don't. I certainly don't. I know of people who've had opioid issues. In fact, as someone who has been in a military command position, I've referred some for treatment, but I've never known anyone who's died from it. That's why we care enough to declare it a public health crisis. We are dangerously close to a moment in time when every one of us will know someone who has been shot in a mass shooting. And unfortunately, based on the research, that's what it's going to take for us to care. It has to become personal. She then goes into this. I'm not going to read the whole part, but this thing about a study of bombing victims in London during World War II, and how people were either killed by the bombs, they were very close to where a bomb went off, and suddenly they were very concerned, and after that they took things a lot more seriously, or if people were far away from a bomb blast, they became more cavalier, less concerned about the bombing, because the bombings have gone on and it hasn't affected them, so they actually start feeling more brave. And this, I'm sure, has something to do with humanity in general and how they react as primitive humans. If you get attacked by a tiger or something and you get away, you're going to be much more careful about tigers in the future. It's a survival mechanism. And if you see tigers and things in the distance, but they never come close to you, you will drop your guard to some degree, because you can't be perpetually fearful of everything, or you'll never get anything done. So your body has a built-in mechanism of reinforcement. If something is very threatening to me, it becomes higher on my priority list, and I will be more agitated and concerned about it. And if something is not affecting me directly, then I will be less concerned about it, because it's obviously not as big a threat, and that will allow me to focus on other things that are more pressing for me. The lesson she draws from that is that the people who have had a personal relationship or have been shot at or know someone who's been shot, who've been very directly impacted by things, are the ones we should listen to. I tried to look and see if she had any articles written about illegal immigration. She doesn't, that I could find. But I wonder if she'd feel the same way if I said we should address the illegal immigration issue by speaking to a victim, someone who's had a family member murdered by a illegal immigrant. Is that the correct solution? The answer is no. Those people can be very powerful and maybe call us to action. But someone who has an emotional investment in something is probably not the right person to be going to for the what I would hope is a logical, best solution for a problem. Someone far removed from the actual effects of the problem, who can think clearly and not have emotions sway them one way or the other. She concludes that middle part there. In the meantime, with the mass shooting every day in America, the death toll will keep rising. Well, it's true. The death toll never go down. People will always go up. This will keep happening until it becomes personal. It doesn't have to. Can we please not wait for the tipping point? Can't we just commit to solving the problem instead? Well, if we're talking to 2014 Mel Robbins, and you actually want to address the root cause, some kind of mental health assistance, then yeah, that's probably true. Again, this nation's been awash in guns since its founding. Mass shootings like this are a very recent phenomenon. So it's not because there are weapons. It has to be something else. Fixing the problem. Oh, God, put our best minds to work. This should also trigger warning bells and alarms in your head. Because anytime they talk about putting our best minds to work, it's not going to be our best minds. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. And the left would say something about how right-wingers, how someone like me is maybe anti-science or anti-meritocracy. The problem is there are people who are educated on both sides of any issue, really. But the left, the ones who are going to be pushing something like this, are only going to pick the ones on their side. And they'll say, well, these are college professors, these are elites, these are the best minds. They're not. Just because someone happens to work at a university. The guy I work with one of the guys I work with was talking about how he honestly believed liberals must be infinitely more smarter than conservatives because liberals are the vast majority of college professors, 70, 80, 90%. So obviously that's irrefutable proof that that the conservatives must be stupid and liberals must be geniuses. That's not how it works because there's liberals in those institutions. They tend to hire other liberals because they agree with them. There are intellectuals on both sides of the argument, but our best minds, this person's only going to pick people who are pushing her agenda. We don't have to agree on what causes a mass shooting. We just have to agree that we want to solve the problem of mass shootings. We don't need to know how to solve the problem. We just need to put our best minds to the task of solving it. She then goes on to say that could be similar to JFK and his goal of putting a person on the moon, or I'm sorry, a man on the moon. Am I allowed to say that now? She says it here, how a man would land on the moon. Kennedy didn't have the full plan, but he had a goal. He set for it, and he didn't ask Congress to solve it. He challenged our nation to do it. The difference is something like that is an actual science. There are quantifiable, measurable ways to see if something's going to work or not. This is a social science issue, which is basically not a real science at all. There are scientists who will say that, like the 2014 version of her, which will say that mental health is the real issue. Gun control legislation is not going to solve the problem. And then there's the 2018 or 2016 version of her, which doesn't talk about mental health much at all and says that more gun control laws are needed, even if her which is her 2016 version will say that the laws will not actually, they may or may not, but it's not really important if they make a difference or not. What's important is that we're doing something. That's not how science works. That's how liberals work, but that's not how science works. Using Kennedy's problem-solving approach, let's look at mass shootings in the USA from the same moonshot approach. Imagine if we said that by 2025 we wanted to be a nation. We wanted to be nation. Okay, so there's another nice typo. We wanted to be nation that led the world in having the least number of mass shootings. That's great. We might as well say we want to be a nation that has conquered cancer, no more AIDS, no more hunger. We want to be paradise. We could say it's a brave new world run by science. Based on how divided we are, tragic, blah, 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 vision may seem as difficult. Creating this vision is a start. We always like to just start things. Because then we can work backwards and make it happen. And we must start. We must admit we have a problem that we want to solve. Yeah, we all admit to that. I don't know anyone who has said the U.S. does not have an issue with gun control. Or not gun control, gun violence. Everyone admits there are more shootings in the U.S. than we would like, and we would like to reduce the number of shootings. I think we can all agree on that. If we don't start now, we'll all be waiting, like sitting ducks in the next psycho with too many guns. How many guns is too many guns? Again, really, one. That's the answer. If anyone thinks that liberals aren't out there trying to take your guns, this should let you know. The answer is the next psycho with too many guns. If a psycho has a gun and you don't, then the psycho has too many guns for you. So the only answer in this person's mind would be to make sure this psycho doesn't have any guns. And we're not talking about mental health anymore. So that means making sure nobody has guns. Accessories, which I'm translating here as bump stocks, because other accessories don't really make a big difference. And in fact, again, like I mentioned, the bump stock ultimately is not going to make a difference in overall gun statistics. And ammo. to pick off our friends, family, and children one by one. You'll face a direct hit. Then you'll care. All the liberals, not all, most of the liberals say they don't want to ban all guns. They just want to ban, assault weapons, military weapons of war, armor-piercing bullets. Mostly nonsense. And what it boils down to then is, okay, so I have a shotgun for hunting. I have a lever-action rifle. I can still kill plenty of people with those weapons. And then there'll be a mass shooting with those weapons, and they'll want to restrict those. It won't end, because if the goal is no shootings, then the only answer is banning all weapons. And even then, if you ban weapons, there's still millions of them around, and people will still get them. And there's still the problem of violence, whether it's knives, bombs, trucks. That's not the solution. There is an answer to this problem, yes. I thought your other answer of mental health legislation, maybe some of these extreme, like last-minute court orders to seize weapons temporarily until a hearing can be held. I know some Second Amendment people are not a big fan of those either, but if there's justification, probable cause, and it's temporary, I don't have so much an issue with that. Just imagine, it's 2030, in the news, a headline flashes onto the screen. USA has been free of mass shootings for years. That's not going to happen. Again, if it's only 4 people, by your definition up here, an old-timey revolver is more than enough. Without even having to reload, an old-timey revolver is more than enough to cause a mass shooting. So this is unrealistic. See, the moon landing was realistic. It was difficult. It was challenging, but it was realistic. If this is your answer, no mass shootings for years, then you're way out of line. I would like to ask a couple questions of her, which of course she's not going to listen. But this article here isn't by her, but she talks. She's a supporter of science and research and addressing this, like the space shot. This article from CNN talks about return of government gun research and how the CDC has been prevented from doing gun research, which research into the problem you would think would help solve it. This is from March of 2018. Strangely, the next month, April 2018, a CDC report that was never released, never publicized, came out. And it said, in their study from 96 to 98, it showed that 2.46 million U.S. adults used a gun for self-defense every year, an average during those years of 2.5 million adults using a gun for self-defense, based on an enormous sample of almost 13,000 cases, nationally representative sample. Strongly confirms the 2.5 million past 12 months estimate. Implies that guns were used defensively by victims about 3.6 times as often as they were used by criminals. Now, I had to go to the Daily Caller for this, even though CNN just the month before was asking about government research and mentioned the CDC. I didn't find an article on CNN about the CDC research. In fact, I didn't find it on ABC or any other mainstream press outlets I looked at. It was really strange. I don't know why they would skip over something when they're so big on science. But these are our best minds. CNN, the Washington Post, the mainstream media. They're unbiased, and we'll look at all pertinent information. I don't know how they missed this one because it seems pretty pertinent. But I think the right answer is banning bump stocks. That will solve our problems with gun control or with shootings here in the U.S. I don't know. This was obviously it's media bias, but it just since this article jumped out, and it's something that always pisses me off because they're not looking to solve the problem, and it is a legitimate problem that needs addressing. I just had to go through it. Oh, there is one other thing. I always like this video when someone says about banning firearms or whatever. If you've not seen it, It's interesting. Let me blow it up here. It might get grainy. We'll see. Okay, so this guy, he's got a gun here. He's heard yelling and screaming out in his apartment building. He's got his gun here. And I guess he sees a neighbor out there with like a machete. So he closes the door, locks it up. Let's just watch. And then when we see what happens, let's pretend this guy didn't have a gun. I'd like to ask the gun control people what the right answer is. What is this person supposed to do when he's unarmed? Okay, he didn't get involved. Oh, I think his wife's in the house with him. Okay, so he locked the door. Seems legit.
Hey, you fuck!
He's yelling.
I got a gun!
He's yelling. He's telling the guy he has a gun, so he's trying to stop him. Yeah, I'm not sure what he's supposed to do when the guy kicks through the door. Now, obviously, the apartment manager should probably be talked to as well. And this is not some fake pretend event. This actually happened. Shot 3 times, and I skipped it. But a little later on, the shooter, the guy with the gun, knows this person. He's like, "Why'd you do it? You made me shoot you. I didn't want to kill you." And the guy on the ground with the machete said something along the lines of, "I was going to kill you." So that's the only answer. That's the only answer. That is 100% legitimate self-defense use of a firearm. You can hear the woman crying in the background. You've listened to the guy. He's very emotional as well. No one wanted to do that. So if you're the gun control proponent, what is your answer? That family was just supposed to get hacked up by Machete Man? Because that's what you're saying has to happen. And you're saying your feelings over, I don't know if she mentioned it in this article or a different one of her articles, she mentioned it's like, I don't know, 40, 50,000 homicides a year, which the majority are suicide. But 40 or 50,000 homicides a year in the U.S. And that's in contrast with the 2.5 million self-defense gun usages. So are we basing our decision making off the emotional reaction of the small few that are directly impacted by illegal gun violence? Or are we using our rational minds, looking at the evidence and the data, and saying that actually maybe guns are a net benefit? And if that's the case, when we look at alcohol use, which kills more people per year, whether it's through drunk driving, diseases, crimes committed under the influence of alcohol, do we then say, unlike firearms, which have 2.5 million self-defense uses a year, these firearms actually have a meaningful purpose. We could say alcohol has no legitimate purpose. It doesn't do anything beneficial for society. In fact, it takes law-abiding people and reduces their capacity and judgment and makes a regular law-abiding citizen more prone to do illegal things and hurt people. So would you be in favor of more alcohol restrictions or banning alcohol? And of course the answer is no, because that one's popular, and I'm sure Mel Robbins probably drinks alcohol. So that one would be bad to ban because she's all in favor of alcohol, I'm sure, and the freedom of people to choose alcohol. But when it comes to an actual useful tool that some people misuse, the answer is more gun control and punishing the law-abiding citizens. That's it for now. I just had to rant a bit. Thanks for listening.